Welcome to Coast to Coast Creatives, a podcast for and about working professional artists within the entertainment industry. I'm Joe Funk, and along with my co-host, Torrin Cavens-Flores, we interview actors, directors, photographers, writers, and many, many more. Today, we're chatting with Katy Chen Mazarra, a money mentor who provides financial coaching specifically geared towards all types of creatives. Being a 20-year veteran of the film and TV industry, Katy has personal experience with the financial situations of artists and the self-employed. She has crafted a mentoring strategy that is the combination of holistic reflection as well as practical applications. Katy provides so much wonderful, free wisdom in this episode, and I encourage you to check out her website, katychenmazarra.com. where she's always updating her blog with even more tips and tricks on how to live your life with abundance, purpose, and love. It takes a lot of courage to begin the process of self-reflection in hopes of accomplishing financial independence. So, even before we begin, I want to congratulate you on taking that first step, even if it is just a simple curiosity at this point. Financial independence is possible for all of us. If you're looking to get a head start on your finances heading into the new year, this is a perfect episode for you. Let's dive on in. How you doing today, Katy?
I'm doing great. How are you both?
I'm doing wonderful.
Doing well.
Yeah, we're doing really great. We're really excited to chat with you today. I feel like you have a lot of amazing insight and information that can help out a lot of our audience. So thank you so much for taking your time to be with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm excited to be here.
All right, we're gonna dive right in. So you are a 20-year veteran of the media and entertainment industry. Tell us a little bit about your backstory.
Yeah, I started in news production, and I was in news and as an anchor, reporter, producer, editor, all of the things for about 10 years. And then I transitioned into entertainment, and I was a freelance TV producer and then a development executive for about 15 years. So yeah, it was a long career before I transitioned into what I'm currently doing now.
What brought about that transition for you?
It was a combination of things. One was I was traveling all of the time for work, and I was gone probably 6 months out of the year, and I was kind of tired of it. I got married, and I was like, I just want to be home and, I don't know, nest.
Yeah, sure.
And then the other thing was, I was getting into my 40s. I had turned 40, and then I was like, okay, I can probably do this for a couple more years, but I knew that once I hit 50, I definitely did not want to still be a freelance TV producer, especially working the hours that we worked in the business. As producers, sometimes you're working like 20 hours a day, and until, the sun came back up and you're like, what am I doing here? What am I doing with my life? So yeah. And then I had always wanted to create my own business. So that's how, I made the transition.
I love that. So
Awesome.
It sounds like you wanted something with a little bit more stability in your life as far as work hours and making your own schedule, and also just having your own business is amazing.
Yes. Well, the thing is, it's like I'm a very hard worker, and I would rather put in those hours for myself and really bank on myself rather than on someone else and give them all of my time and energy and just get a little bit of money for that. Right. So that is a huge piece of why I wanted to start my own business.
And you describe yourself as the right brain creative type.
Yes, exactly.
And the line of work that you're in, where you are dealing with money, you're dealing with finances. A lot of us right brain people are scared to go into that field. We're scared of money, talking about money altogether. What made you take that jump into the world of being a money mentor?
Well, it's really funny because as a kid, I was really bad at math. I would sit there at the kitchen table. My dad would try to teach me math, and he would get so frustrated with me that it would always end up with me crying and him going, just copy my answers, and he would do my homework for me. And so, yes, it is really interesting that I went into this whole financial wellness coaching realm. And, I always say, well, we have calculators now, right? And a lot of the stuff that you studied in school doesn't really matter. And you don't really need to know math to actually create a financial wellness plan for yourself. In fact, you just need a lot of, you need a little bit of guidance. And then there's also things that we were taught as kids that may not be the things that we really need or want, especially as a creative person. And the other reason I got into this is because I've actually known 3 women in my life who stayed in abusive relationships because of the lack of resources. They didn't work outside the home. They had young children to take care of. And so they didn't feel like they could leave. And so they felt stuck in their situation. And so my mission has always been to make sure that people are making decisions not based on money. And it always sounds a little weird and funny for me to say that because I am a money coach. However, I really want people to make decisions based on their core values and the dreams that they have for themselves and their children.
And what are your core values? What are these core values that you like to preach?
Yeah, some of my core values are love and freedom. Freedom is a huge, huge thing for me. And, I feel like, one of the reasons why I was a successful freelance TV producer was because of the idea that because of my value of freedom, because I really liked kind of going from job to job and moving around and doing different things and meeting new people. However, after a while, it didn't become free to me. It started to become more restrictive, right? So that is definitely one of my other core values. And then I also have the core values of like loyalty. I'm a very loyal person, almost to a fault sometimes. And then, there are a few other things that I'm really passionate about. I really like adventure and growth. Those are also some of my core values.
Very cool. What I like so much about looking through your website and chatting with you is that so much of your work is mindset based, and it's keeping these core values of love and freedom, and how this can free up the mind of an artist and of a creative. Tell us a little bit about what types of creatives make up your clientele.
Yeah, it's all kinds. I mean, we have actors and writers and musicians, producers, directors, and then creative entrepreneurs, right? Like if you consider yourself creative, you consider your business a creative entity, then you fit into this mold. I think the only thing that it may not fit into is like a more traditional type of business, right? Like somebody who, let's say, has a gardening business or something, maybe it's not, for them. Or, I mean, and it may be because they may also consider their gardening a very creative pursuit, right? I don't judge based off of that. I think it's up to the individual. I think the people who don't resonate with my work are probably somebody who is super left-brained and very like more on the logical side of things, and then need to question everything, right? And I can give you answers all day. However, then that's just really slowing down the process, right?
Yeah.
Of what we can achieve. Because even I had a call today in a small group coaching call today, and in that call, they were very surprised at some of the answers, right? Like somebody was like, I'm tired of not making as much money as I possibly want to make, right? And she's a voiceover artist as well. And then she's like, I just want something quickly to get to the next level, What is that thing? What can I do? And the thing that I was talking to her about was really around her worth and her worthiness and understanding what she can receive, right? Is she worthy of receiving all that is good and the money that she wants and all of those things? And then I just asked her a very, very simple question of, if I were to say to you right now, you deserve and you are so worthy of taking a vacation in this very moment, what comes up for you? And she was like, ooh, no. The first thought was, that's irresponsible and I need to get to work. And I said, that's exactly what we're talking about here. I mean, when we're talking about that, then that is going to slow down your progress. When you don't actually feel like you are worthy of receiving it, how can you receive it? Right.
Yeah.
And the faster that you can get through those places, then it actually creates magic. And it's like you move like lightning speed at that point.
Let's talk a little bit about that magic. What exactly happens when someone accepts and loves themselves and their worth? How can that manifest in their lives?
Well, I really believe that self-worth is equal to net worth. And then I also have to say the opposite isn't true, that net worth, people with high net worth who may not have high self-worth, those are the people that start to get into trouble with money, right? Like that's why you see those studies that say, 70% of lottery winners lose it all within 3 years. It's because they haven't cultivated their own self-worth. And you and I, the three of us, can sit here and say, oh, no, that's not going to be me. When I win the lottery, there's no way I would lose it within 3 years, right? I have all of these other dreams and things to take care of. However, if you didn't feel like you deserved it and you didn't have that sense of self-worth, then it's so easy to get taken off of your game, right? It's so easy for you to start to give that money out just unconsciously and do things in a way that you normally wouldn't do just because you did not feel like you actually deserved or earned that money, right? Like if your belief system is, I have to work super hard in order to earn money, then winning the lottery is not going to help you because you are going to be one of those people that loses that money within 3 years.
I always tried to put myself in their shoes and wonder how you could spend that money so quickly. I was just reading about one of the most recent winners, and he's buying up, which could be a good investment, real estate in California, in Southern California. But when I read the article a little further, it wasn't necessarily a good investment. He was investing in cars, and they were saying, oh, he has this house where you walk in, and then in the entryway, he has a live DJ that's going to be there to welcome him into his new home. Wow.
Just get Spotify.
Right.
Just
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? And I know exactly who you're talking about. I mean, I don't know the person, but I know it's the winner, the person who won the $2 billion Powerball most recently. Not the most recent one, but about 6 months ago. And that person is somebody who does not know their values, what they really want, and they don't really, really, truly know who they are and what they're about, right? Because if they did, those would definitely not be decisions that they would make.
Yeah.
I wonder how long the DJ's there for. Just like
around the clock.
Just got like
hours.
a little bed behind his booth. Like a little futon.
And how much is he paying this DJ?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Ooh, goodness.
And
Wow.
if I were the DJ, I'd be like, oh, I know you're a billionaire. So yeah, my time is worth $1 million, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about what is the benefit of working with a money mentor and a life coach, particularly from the side of an artist.
Well, it's really to understand yourself, right? Like you can only be as good with your money and with your even your career as an artist. It's all based on how your emotions are and then also what you really believe in. Right. Like one of my spiritual teachers, Michael Beckwith, he always talks about you don't get what you want, you get what you believe. And that's so true, right? Because if you can't believe it or if you don't believe something, then how is it ever going to show up in this, in reality, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really working with that. And then beliefs are formed in our childhood based on what we experienced around us, right? And especially around money, because with money, as kids, we have no clue as to what money really is, because to be honest, money's made up, right? Like as humans, we've made it up. And so when we were kids, we only absorb the things that we see around us, like, oh, dad is always stressed out every single year when he's doing his taxes. Or mom is spending a lot of money, but then she's hiding clothes in the closet, right? Before dad can find out. Or in my case, I had a grandmother who was pretty well off. However, she would always say things like, oh, when I die, nobody's getting my money. I'm going to be buried with it. And she was just so tight with her money and held on to it so much. And then was always accusing people of stealing it. And then in my mind, what I got from her experience was that I don't want to be like her.
Yeah.
I don't want to be this miserly old woman who held on to her money so much. So then what happened to me was in my 20s, I actually started to spend everything I had. Anytime money came in, it went out almost immediately. Just because, and this was all unconscious, right? Just because I did not want to be like her. And not until I really realized, okay, well, that's not also a healthy way to be. It's just to do the opposite, right? And then never have any money before I started to figure out, okay, well, how else can I do this in a different way?
Yeah, so much of our perspective on money and success comes from our parents, for sure. And also my personal experience of living in Los Angeles through most of my 20s was getting very accustomed to the idea of money hits my paycheck, my paycheck hits the bank and then it's gone very quickly. I'm like, okay, well, most of this is going to rent, or most of it's going towards just living. I know you've experienced that as well, Torin.
Oh yes. Oy.
And
Yes.
it can be really very, very disheartening. If we're in that situation, if we're paycheck to paycheck, what are the first steps that we can do to get out of that negative mindset?
Well, the first thing is to know that there is a solution, right? Because sometimes people feel like it's all out of their control and that there's nothing that they can do because they don't make enough. However, that's not necessarily the truth. All right. And then the second thing is I always tell people I like for them to track their money. And this is very different from budgeting. I actually do not believe in budgets. And I will tell you why in a second.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, but I do believe in tracking your money, which simply just means every single month I want you to write down either on a sheet of paper or you can put it in a spreadsheet or do an app, whatever it is that's easiest for you, and just start to look at what's coming in and what's going out. And you would be so surprised at like some of the things that you're spending money on that you're like, oh, I didn't even realize. I didn't realize that was still coming out of my bank account every single month, right? Or you're just going to start to become more conscious of it so that then at the end of the month, you don't go, oh, I know I made some money, but I have no idea where it all went. Instead, you actually do know, and you start to create a more conscious habit of understanding and really stepping into I get to make decisions about all of this, right? Maybe not your necessities like your rent and food and utilities. However, all of these other things, you get to make that decision and you have the choice of whether or not this is a conscious choice that aligns with your values, or is something that I just did it one day, and now I've been paying for this thing for like the last 10 years.
Yeah, yeah. I like the idea of tracking a lot. Something that I got into, again, when I was living in LA and I was trying to pay off credit card, and also I was trying to be a photographer and a videographer and paying for gear, so any of my extra money went there. I found that what worked for tracking for me was, it was not an app. It was not checking my online banking statements or anything like that, because those all live in the cell phone. Like, they live like above my head in the cloud, and I don't vibe with those numbers. What I would always do is I took a sticky note and I would put it on top of my wallet, and then I would stick a pen inside my wallet as well. And then every time I would spend on anything, I would pull up my wallet, I have the pen and I have the paper, and I would physically write it down. And I found
I love that.
that was a much more effective technique for me. And then I could also see the line getting longer and longer. I was like, oh, wow, I eat out a lot. I
Yes.
probably don't need to be doing that. So,
Right.
so
I love that. It makes it even more conscious when you actually physically write it down versus just looking at an app.
Yeah, I can't use apps. I wish like, if I go into my notes app in my phone, there's probably a million things where I'm just like, this was a place where I listened to a song I really liked and I wrote that down. I don't know what these numbers mean. It looks like a password. Who knows? So I find writing things down is much more helpful. And let's circle back then to budgeting. Why do you not recommend budgeting?
Budgeting to me is just like a diet, right? It's something you can do for a little bit of time, and then you're going to either rebel against it, or you are going to just, say, this is not for me, and stop, right? And it's not sustainable for the long run. And to me, it also is very rooted in scarcity. Right. And the reason that budgets are rooted in scarcity is because every single month you're telling yourself, I only have this much money for food. I only have this much money for clothes or entertainment or going out with my friends or whatever. Right. And then at the end of the month, you're basically going down to zero, right? Because you've actually allocated that. However, it's not even real, right? Because let's say in one category, you said, oh, I have $500 for food or for clothes, but you didn't spend $500 this month on clothes. Well, where are you putting that money? Like, what is that? Does it go into something else? If it does, then you're kind of not budgeting. So it's all very rooted in that scarcity thinking, and it feels very restrictive. And then I think as creatives, we just don't think in that way, right? We don't really like, it's so much less creative to actually restrict yourself until you tell yourself, I only have this much money for this or that.
Yeah. It's like when you, like, I've had a lot of times where I want to give up alcohol, and I do for long stretches, sometimes for like years at a time. And I've found and it's it's a health thing and it's a money thing. It's a little bit of everything. And I find what works for me is mentally saying, not saying I'm not drinking right now. I'm saying I don't drink alcohol. And just like mentally making that shift to just say like, oh, this is part of me and this is part of who I am. It's not setting this temporary restriction on like a diet or a budget, and just saying like, okay, I got to get through this month. I got to get through this week. You have to turn that switch of saying, okay, this is who I am. And then it reflects and it manifests.
That's really interesting. That's actually, have you ever heard of or read Gretchen Rubin's 4 Tendencies framework?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's a really cool, you can go online and do a personality test, and it goes into these different categories of whether you're an upholder or an obliger or a rebel or a questioner. And I would venture to guess you're probably a rebel, because rebels tend to go, yeah, why would I do that? There's no rhyme or reason. And then, but you can make yourself do something as long as it's part of your identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a rebel, and that's why it resonated with me when you said that.
Oh, that's very interesting. What's your personal experience, Torn, with budgeting and tracking? Let's get the actor perspective.
Yeah. Oh boy. So yeah, tracking is definitely, I guess, like you were saying, it's definitely easier than budgeting. I've never had very much success with budgeting because of all the reasons that you said, actually. And I never really thought about it, and so you said it, and I'm like, wow, that actually makes a lot of sense. And now I don't feel as much of a failure after you said that. So that's cool. That's a nice feeling. But yeah, I think just going back to childhood and how that affects us here, all of that, I guess the discipline often lacks with me. I was going over because Joe's pretty good at this stuff, and he was helping me out a few months ago, and we were going over things, and it's interesting because it's not like just random crap that I just blow money on. It's mostly food. Like that's really mostly what it is. But yeah, I don't know. Just I guess the discipline of holding on to money. I honestly never feel like I have enough, and I'm constantly stressed out. And truth be told, today was a pretty awful day in that regard, which is kind of ironic because you're our guest today. But yeah, not a great day for me mentally. Kind of felt like I was going to have a panic attack all day because of this stuff. And it happens more often than I'd like. These terrible days of just feeling like my brain is going to implode. Yeah. So very interested to have you on the show. Oh, and I I signed up for your newsletter.
Oh, great.
Through email. So
Yeah.
just FYI.
I
Did
mean,
that
do you
answer
wanna-
a question at all?
I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Crippling
Absolutely.
anxiety and panic. Sure. Yeah. All right. Cool.
I mean, if you want to go into it, we can do some coaching right here.
I don't know if we have that much time. And I do have to edit this, so
Okay.
that means I would just be reliving it over and over again. But I am excited to get more into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
This year has been very hard for so many of us,
Yes.
with the WGA strike and then the SAG-AFTRA strike. Everyone has to understand that, because not everyone works in the industry that listens to this, it affects all of us. It
Yes.
affects obviously the actors, obviously the writers, but everybody that's tied together with productions on any level. It affects me because I'm a headshot photographer. Actors are not getting headshots right now. I have not had a lot of that work this year. In Los Angeles, we were talking about this the other day, it affects the restaurant industry and the servers at those restaurants. So it's hitting everybody really, really hard. And I'm sure you've had a lot of people coming to you this year wondering, what do I do with this time, this difficult
Yes.
time? What
Yes.
do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is it's important to just take a breath, right? And that's, like it sounds so trite in a way to say that. However, we have to regulate our nervous system first in order to do anything, because when we're in survival mode, when we don't have food, water, air, shelter, then that's what causes the panic attacks, right? That's what causes all of the other stuff. And then you can't even be creative or bring in other sources of income, because all your brain is doing is, we're we're going to die, and that's what survival mode is. And so it's so important that you're regulating your nervous system so that it's, it's taking the breath, doing either 4-7-8 breathing, which is breathing in for 4, holding for 7, and then breathing out for 8, or box breathing, or any of those kinds of things is going to be very, very helpful just to start, right? I'm not saying that that's your solution for everything every day. However, just to start, let's regulate our nervous system and calm down that part of our survival brain that gets activated. And then the next piece is to really allow yourself to go into a place when you were a kid, like what was super fun for you? What was something that like created joy? Right? Like whether it is like, oh, when, I was on the swing sets, it was really fun and freeing, right? Or drawing or reading or just, I don't know, playing toys with my friends or whatever, right? Like we have to get back into that little childhood place so that we can also feel that sense of adventure and play, and that we're not in survival mode, because that also helps us. Like first the breath work will help you to regulate your nervous system, but then it's like your mind is still like, I'm not sure what we're doing. And then it's like, okay, if you can get into some play is a creative medium, and then it's also a way to create a flow, right? And or what are the things that help you to go into flow state, like where you lose track of time? Is there anything, right? For me, it's like sometimes if I'm listening to music, right, I can go down the rabbit hole of like, oh, I'm going to check out this person. And then it's like, okay, this person reminds me of this band, and I'm going to go and check out this band, right? I can do that for hours. And that has nothing to do with my work. And yet it's such a beautiful way of getting into a different flow state that then it creates so much more for ourselves in terms of bringing in other flow around us, right? And then the other piece of it is to get into what it is that you do, however, doing it in a way that feels like there's no pressure and it's just fun. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna create just for the sake of creating for myself, right? And whatever that looks like, like for me, I do love to write, even though I'm a financial coach, I love to write. And so sometimes it's like, if I'm in a yucky place of, in a funk or something, I'll sit down and write like a song or a poem or something, just to help myself to get into a creative space, but not necessarily with any pressure.
Yeah, I find that if I'm a little bit off, I can be doing some sort of creative endeavor, something that I'm not paid for. I can be editing a film, I can be writing, I can be just doing any sort of side project that I'm passionate about. And if something's a little bit off with me, there will unfortunately be a bit of that nagging voice in the back of my head that's just saying, well, you're not making any money doing this. You're not earning anything from this today. Why are you doing this? And then it starts to sort of cycle and start going through panic mode, exactly what you're talking about, that stressing out. And I think it is important to, do you read any books by Chase Jarvis or listen to his podcast?
I don't.
I think you would really like his books. He has a book called Creative Calling, and it's about how we're all born to be creative. Humans are creative creatures, and then it's pushed out of so many of us, almost all of us, by the time that we become adults. And his whole philosophy is about bringing this creativity back into our lives in every aspect, no matter what you do. If you're a businessman, if you're an actor, if you're whatever, it doesn't matter. We all need to embrace that creativity in our lives.
Absolutely. And when it comes to that other piece, I mean, that was exactly one of the members of, or my small group coaching clients we were talking through today, because she also had this feeling of like, anytime she was trying to do something that wasn't for money and as a job, she would get into this thinking, oh, you're wasting time.
Yeah.
You're not being very responsible. Why are you doing this? Right. And the question that I would ask you too, which is what I asked her, is like, what does that remind you of? Like, who in your life actually was the one who would be like, stop fooling around, get to work, don't do that. Get out of the the things that aren't productive.
I don't think there was any one person in my life that did that. My parents were always really supportive of me in any decision that I made, whether it was like getting a theater degree or a film degree. I think it was more just general societal pressure of seeing people that I went to school with, high school or college, that went into finance and went into business and were thriving and doing really well. And they had houses and kids and cars and all of these things. And I always felt some pressure, be like, I think I need to be more like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely go and get societal pressure for sure. And I would venture to guess, if you really, really like sat down and like thought about it, there may have been somebody, still may not have been your parents. It could be, it could be a teacher, it could be, friends, it could be, like somebody, there was somebody that kind of reinforced the idea that when you were not working or doing something for money, that it was being irresponsible, right? Or that there was a sense that, play and being creative was not the responsible thing to do or the adult thing to do.
I'm going to have to do some meditation on that. I'm interested.
Dig deep.
Did you ever have anyone like that, Torrin? I know you're kind of the same, where your family at least always supported you. Do you have anyone else in your life that is this type?
Yeah, I was thinking about it. My parents and like my entire family has always been super supportive of acting, what I want to do, and that's amazing. And I am like forever grateful for that, because not a lot of people get that. We were always pretty not wealthy. we were it seemed like it was always a struggle. And even as a child, I was aware of it, I would see my mom or dad stressed out, and even as a kid, I knew why. And I don't know. I guess I don't know. Maybe
that could actually be part of it too, right? Because sometimes when you see your parents struggling so much, and then there still doesn't seem to be a huge result from that, then we tend to start to think, well, what's the point anyway? Right? Like, if we're going to just keep trying and working so hard, and then it's not yielding the kind of results that we want, then it doesn't need to have like we're just sort of spinning our wheels and not having to to actually make the kind of money that we really want to make.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, sorry.
I mean, there's
quiet
a lot.
I'm just thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
which is great for a podcast. Moments of silence where we just think. Step it up, Torrin. Come on. Yeah, no. I always knew what the struggle was, and I never wanted that struggle, but here we are. So I don't know.
Sometimes when you don't want something, it's not, but if that's what you noticed and saw, it can actually just keep repeating itself, right? Until you've actually shifted and changed and made different decisions and choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've noticed with a lot of creative types in my life, they tend to begin to romanticize this idea of a struggling artist. They say like, no, this is poetic, this is romantic. I'm going to New York. I'm gonna be on Broadway, and I'm going to live paycheck to paycheck. And it's almost that way coming out of college for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that you notice in your line of work as well?
Oh yeah, I notice this all the time. I mean, I have one person who's a musician, and that is how he thinks. Like he actually thinks it's, there's something better, like more noble about being the starving artist, right?
Yeah.
And one of my friends who's a financial planner, he actually wrote this, and I actually wanted to read this because it's so good, right?
Yeah.
He says, the starving artist stigma is fake. In 1847, a struggling poet romanticized poverty. He published Scènes de la vie de Bohème, inspiring modern-day productions La Bohème, Rent, and Moulin Rouge, enabling millions of creatives to neglect their financial wellness. Think for yourself, believe in yourself, start thriving, become an example for future artists, change the narrative.
That's
so
beautiful.
Good, right?
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so good. And it's so great that it's like, the idea of the struggling artist started with something that was fictional, right?
Right.
And yet it's so perpetuated throughout society that people actually think that that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And that, to choose the life of being an artist, you must choose poverty.
No, it's a struggle enough without having to worry about lack of finance. Yeah. It's already a struggle. So
it goes to the point where we often always, as creatives, we often, at least I did. I struggled with even accepting payment for my art in the very beginning. When I started doing headshot photography, there was a long stretch where all of my friends were actors and I was practicing and I was learning techniques. And then when people started to pay me for it, I felt weird at first because I felt, I'm not going to say guilt, but I felt like I was getting away with something. I was just like, what? People are paying me to do something that I enjoy to do? That's not how this is supposed to work. I'm supposed to go back to my data entry job, and that's how I make a paycheck and have a 401k and all of that.
I actually had to slap you on the wrist a few times of like, Joe, come on, like charge what you're worth. Like, come on, man.
And it's a hard balancing act because you have to figure out how much you can work for free as well and how long you can work for free. And it's tricky as an artist. It's very, very, very tricky.
It's very tricky. And this is why, like, when you were first asking me about, why artists need like a financial wellness coach or a life coach or any of those kinds of things. And it's partly because of this, right? Like, I had a client whose husband is a financial planner. So she's like, I know everything there is to know about 401ks and IRAs and all of those things. However, I'm struggling to raise my rates. Right. And then, that's why the work that we were doing, it was like, most of the time I do a balance of the practical as well as the emotional, spiritual, right? However, for her, it was none of the practical because all she really needed was a lot of this mindset work and the emotional and digging deep and really figuring out where it came from so that she can actually move forward and do something different. And then once we did that, she, tripled her rates and was able to start up another business. Now she's got 2 businesses and is doing really, really well.
So you would recommend that someone always first focus on the mindset, focus more on that portion before they move on to practical, before they start jumping into the left brain stuff that we're not all good at, the figuring out numbers and Roth IRAs and things like that? Would you say focus first on mindset and then start to work that in?
Yes, I start off all of my clients and programs like looking at your story, right? What is your money story? What are the things that you grew up learning? What did your parents do? And how did they act with money or without money? And what are some of the messages that you feel like you received as a kid? Right. And then you can start to pick that apart and say, okay, well, these are what those beliefs are. Like, here's where I got that belief, or here's where I got this belief. And then once you actually figure out your belief system, then you can start to make the changes, right? Because you get to decide now, okay, do I want to keep those beliefs, or now do I want to get rid of them or give them back to whomever they belong to? Because the first step of actually being able to change these things is the realization of it. Because if it wasn't a realization and it's still running unconsciously in your mind, then it's always going to continue to be the same, right? But the fact that that just kind of popped into your mind, now you get to look at that and decide, okay, what do I want to do with that, right? And again, this work, sometimes it feels like, oh, we're blaming our parents for something, but it's not, right? We're not blaming our parents for anything. In fact, it's the opposite, because everybody knows how to do whatever they've learned how to do, right? And so now it's just you getting a chance to look at that pattern and decide how you want to break it, right? Either by working with a coach or working it through it yourself too, because sometimes you can do a lot of the work yourself if you really are paying attention and you're willing to kind of dig deep and write down those stories and look at all of the belief systems, like taking that story, right? And then writing out what are the beliefs that you got from that story, from that particular place.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting reading through your website how you describe money as energy. And speaking of mindset, I imagine thinking of money as energy is a certain kind of mindset. And I was just wondering how you came upon that.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people say it is energy. I actually say it's a form of energy, right? It's a form. It's almost like it's an exchange of energy. Well, it's not almost, it is an exchange of energy, right? Like, you have something I need or want. I'm going to pay you this currency to get it, right? I'm going to give you a credit card or cash or whatever to actually receive the service or the product. And so because of that, it is so important that we're in the same energetic frequency as that in order to be able to bring it into our lives. And also the reason I really see it as this exchange of energy and this form of energy is going back to what we had said before, which is that money isn't real, right? Like, we as humans made it up. We decided every single country, your currency is different. Our countries' currencies are so different from one another, right? Like, a dollar in the US is not the same as the Canadian dollar, it's not the same as the Australian dollar. And because of that, like, it's these arbitrary ideas of like what value you're putting onto that currency, right? The dollar bill or whatever. Then you also get to decide, what value do you want to put onto money? Like, what does it represent to you, right? And for me, money just represents freedom. So the more money I have, the more freedom of choice I have.
Yeah, and that's interesting. That resonates, because when I think about it, that's basically what money represents to me, is just, a sense of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's great, right? Because if you start to think about money as a sense of freedom, then it all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, it's important to me then to actually make some money, right? Otherwise, you're going into the artist mentality of how noble it is, right? Not to have money and to be that starving artist or whatever.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No, I like food way too much to be starving. So
Yes,
Joe
me
will tell you.
too. Me too.
So let's talk a little bit about. I understand it's probably different for every person, so case by case is very, very it's individual. But if we correct our mindset, if we go back and figure out our relationship with money, what are some of the basic practical steps that creatives can implement to start paying off their credit card, start paying down their student loans?
Yes. So debt to me is one of those areas where my work is so different from what's out there, because so many times, like when you read a book about, paying down debt or savings or those kinds of things, it's coming from a place of like, you get a paycheck every 2 weeks. Right. And for most creatives, especially those that I work with, I work with people who have inconsistent incomes. You don't know whether or not, you're going to be working in 2 months or 6 months or whatever. Right. Because that's my world. Like for 15 years, I was a freelance TV producer where I didn't know, right? Like I'll be on a show for 3 or 6 months and then I won't be on a show for 3 or 6 months, right? And so that was part of my way of going, okay, well, how do people do this? How do people actually save up for retirement or even think about retirement or pay down their debts and stuff when I don't know if I'm going to be working next month or in 2 months? And so to me, the way to do this is actually to slow it way, way, way down. And, most of the time people think about it. I mean, you just, Torrin talked about the $8 residual check. But if you get a residual check that's more than that, right? Like, let's say you get a pretty big one and it's like $800, for example, right? And you're like, okay, well, I can use it and pay down food, pay down my credit card this month, right? I would actually say don't do that, and a lot of people are like, can't even wrap their heads around that concept. But here's why. It's because you don't know what's coming around the corner. So I would actually venture that it's important that you look at it from this perspective of, okay, how much do I have sort of left over at the end of the month? And that's what I'm going to start to apply towards the credit card debts, right? So that then it'll get paid off. It will get paid off slower. However, it will still get paid off. And I'm not sacrificing current cash flow for that future, right? Instead, I want you to be able to build up the amount that you have and have some kind of reserve so that then the next month or in 2 months when you're not working, that there's still money in the bank, right? Like that's what is way more important for creatives and those with inconsistent incomes than to just quickly pay down your credit card debts. Because to be honest, I mean, those credit card companies, it's like, they're a little bit of sharks, right?
Just a smidge.
Yes.
God.
And so why, help them out so much, right?
Yeah.
And if it's like troublesome, which it should be, troublesome to think about having to pay 30% interest rates or whatever, then, I would say keep transferring them to those 0% cards as much as possible until you can get it paid down. And then when it comes to student loans, right now the government has this SAVE program. And I would recommend anybody who has student loans to actually sign up for it just to see what it can do for you, because it could potentially help you to get some forgiveness. And then also it can reduce some of your monthly payments as well. Some people who've actually signed up for it, they're like, oh yeah, my monthly payments are now very nominal. And then by next year, by July of 2024, it's actually at the official time when it all kicks in. And that's when you could actually see up to 50% off of your student loan payments per month.
Yeah, I already signed up for that. I haven't heard anything back, but it's in there.
Yeah.
So
yes.
I'm signed up. Yeah. And they're not a whole lot of info after you do that. They're just like, okay, thanks. Now just wait.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
It could be a while for sure. But
So,
I actually had
yeah.
some a client or a member of my Financial Freedom for Creatives Club who did this program, and then they figured out like, oh, she had been paying into it and it didn't really count. So she got all of it forgiven. She had like $160,000 of student loan debt forgiven.
My goodness.
And
Wow.
she's like, this is the first time I've been debt free in my whole entire life. And I
Wow.
think she's, in her 50s now. So,
Ooh.
yeah.
Yeah, do your research. Get out the Google and start to see what you can do. My wife graduated from nursing school a couple of months ago, and we're working on plans to pay off those student loans. And in the research for student loan forgiveness, it's like, oh, these are all of the options for healthcare workers. These are all of the options for teacher. These are all the even people that are working in the arts. There are options for that. So I encourage everyone, do your research.
Yes. Do your research. Exactly. Or sign up for my newsletter, because I actually did send out information about all of that stuff a couple months ago when it was going on.
Yeah. And so we talked about the struggling artist mentality, and something that comes with that is I know a lot of people that are not saving for retirement at all. And now they're getting to the point where they're 35, 40, 45, and their thinking is like, I'm looking at these graphs, and it's going to turn out great if I started when I was 20 years old. But now it feels like it's too late for me. Is there hope? What can we do?
And my brain snaps. Great.
Yes. Yeah, those graphs are so demoralizing sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Because you're looking at it and it says like, if you started at 25 and you saved for 10 years, and then another person who started at 35 and saved for 30 years, the person who only saved for 10 years actually made way more money, right? And then you're like, I'm way past 25 and 35, right? So what am I going to do? I'm screwed. And here's what I'm saying is that you're not screwed, because it's never too late unless you are already in retirement. Right. I literally talked to somebody who just turned 60 like yesterday or the day before. And she was like, how is it not too late for me? I'm 60. Right. And I was like, well, when do you want to retire? And she was like, well, I mean, ideally, I don't really want to retire because I do love what I'm doing. And however, I could see myself slowing down around 75, let's say. And I was like, you have 15 years. 15 years is a long time to actually get started. So I would start now, right? And get it going. And you have some other resources, and, with both Social Security, and yes, there is an argument, will Social Security be around? Lots of people ask me that all the time. And there are so many other things. If you're starting to build up your work, you're going to be able to put in more when you actually do work more, right? And then the other piece of it that I think a lot of actors in particular don't think about is, what about if you're union, you look at your union pensions, right? Go in and look at those statements, because you may be surprised. I was talking to somebody who is, I think, in her late 50s. And she was like nervous about her retirement. We were looking at 2 different reports. So the first time I ran it without her pensions, because she didn't tell me about her pensions. And she would literally have to save like, I don't know, $12,000 a year or something, a lot, in order to get to the retirement she wanted. And then she sent me her pension statements, and I did a recalculation, and she ends up not having to save anything. She would be totally fine once she's in retirement. And this is not somebody who is a well-known actor. Like if I told you her name, you would not know who this person is at all. She's just been building up this body of work slowly, getting guest stars here and there, doing some actors equity work, in theater, all of these things, right? And over these years, from the time she was in her 20s working as an actor until now in her late 50s, it's like she's built up enough that the pension is going to help tremendously. Like she doesn't even have to touch any savings in her retirement.
Wow.
And she's going to be fine. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is inspiring, right? It is inspiring. And it is like, okay, if you're doing the work, you're going to be able to see it. You will.
Mm-hmm. But it can be so hard for all of us right-brained people to begin to dip our toe into retirement talk and savings accounts and things like that. I remember when I worked at the Directors Guild of America, we would have a Charles Schwab representative come in once a year and sit us down in the big auditorium and show us all of those graphs that you were mentioning. And it went over all of my head several times over. And how can we begin to dip our toe into that world? Especially, again, the right brain type people who are really intimidated or just don't understand this talk.
I would say find somebody that you resonate with, right? Or books that you resonate with, right? Like any kind of writers that you feel like, yes, I totally understand what they're talking about, because that's the important piece, so that you can start to understand it for yourself. Not a Charles Schwab representative, because that person is so steeped in the financial jargons that they're not going to be able to communicate in a way that actually makes a lot of sense. And then there's also the piece of maybe perhaps it's not yet time for you to dive into it either, right? Like I always tell everybody, my membership, that like we will get to the retirement investment piece, and we don't do it until kind of towards the end of the year, right? Like right now in October, we're finally getting to it, and we've been working together for this whole entire year starting in January. And it's really because of that, because if you start with something that feels so far away in your mind, even if it's like numbers wise, it may not be as far away, but in your mind, it feels really far away from you, then it's really hard for you to actually be able to do it and to accomplish it, and get it going. So instead it's like, let's start to do this in a very incremental way, and then we will get to that place. And then at that time, the people who are ready for it. And it's like, we're now having these conversations, right? And it feels inspiring, and it feels good, and it feels doable. And at that point,
this group that you're describing, you describe it as a mastermind group, you said?
It's not a mastermind. I call it a membership course because, yeah, there's a part that is a course where I teach the concepts. And then there's another part where it's more of a membership, so that we're coming together as a community. They can ask me any questions. We have a Q&A session. We also have a hot seat coaching call. And that hot seat coaching call is where we dive deeply into some of these emotional places and the things that feel like, okay, I'm a little stuck on, right?
Yeah.
And I need some support, and I need to be able to break out of that and break through it.
And is all of this one-on-one between you two, or is it more of a group?
That one is a group. I also have one-on-one work, yes, that I do with clients. And the membership is, the membership is probably more people who are, just really needing to learn and probably don't have all the money to actually spend on one-on-one work, right? And my one-on-one work isn't as expensive as some coaches. Yeah. However, it is a lot more of an investment than the membership course.
Yeah. And I imagine something that's great with the membership is that it also holds you to a certain level of accountability.
Yes. Somebody was just saying that today, because She was like, oh, last month when we were talking about, this particular thing, she was like, she's a writer, and she was like, I was having writer's block. I couldn't do anything. And then, but right after that call, I kind of got motivated to do something, to start writing. And then it came through. And then I actually got paid to write an article. And then I was coming into this call, I knew that I was coming into this call, and then I started to write again the week before. And it really helped her to have that accountability, right? And to know, okay, well, somebody's going to be checking in on me, or somebody's going to be asking me like, hey, did you get it done? Right? Like, what happened?
That accountability is really important. And it also is very important to feel like you're not alone. To feel like other people are going through the same thing, because in the age of social media, it's very easy to go onto Instagram and see everybody else's highlight reel of what the amazing things they're doing with their life and their career and their vacations, and then you feel smaller. So it's good to have those groups, because you can understand we're all in this together. We're all going through the same things, and then you can all grow together as well.
Yes. And it actually helps you to manifest easier. And here's why. Like, I had a member last year who had over $100,000 of debt. And at first he was very much like, I don't want to talk about it. No one's going to, know what this is. However, the day he did talk about it, all of the shame kind of went away, right? Like Brene Brown's work, I don't know if you know it. She talks about shame a lot, right? And she always says, like, shame loves to hide in dark corners. And so when you actually bring it out into the light and say it out loud, all of a sudden you don't feel as much shame, and that goes away, right? And then when shame goes away, that actually helps to bring in other energies. So he was actually able to manifest about $75,000 of that $100,000 to pay down the debts. And they were kind of miraculous things. Like he got an inheritance from an uncle that he didn't really even know. And there were some company stocks and those kinds of things. All kinds of things that came through. So in, just that 1 year, he was able to pay down 75% of that debt, just by actually speaking it out loud, and he even admits that, because he said as soon as he said it, the shame went away. And then also some of the things that I talked about in terms of solutions, it was like, okay, well, those were things that he had never really even thought about, and it brought to light, like, oh, now I have some options. I don't have to just keep carrying this crazy 6-figure amount of debt, with me for the rest of my life. Right. And then, all of this stuff started to move and happen. So he was able to pay that down.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I really, really love and respect the work that you do. You have such a unique approach to your work that I think will speak to any creative out there. We need this holistic approach. So I'm really digging it. I'm jamming with it.
Nice.
Me too.
Awesome. I love it.
Do you have any podcast recommendations, book recommendations, anything that you can throw out for people to go and Google?
Well, I love the Happier in Hollywood podcast for those who do work in the entertainment industry, because the two women who do it, they are both showrunners in Hollywood. And so they kind of give you the behind the scenes, the good, the bad, the ugly, of it all. And there's so much. It's really interesting to see, but also, like, it's a great way to start to go, yes, everybody's kind of going through these things together, right? Like what we were just talking about with my membership. It's like this podcast helps you to see that, because they really break it down. And when they're struggling, it's like, you kind of, you feel it and you relate to it so much, right? Yeah. And then in terms of a money podcast, I really love Farnoosh Torabi's podcast, So Money. Like she breaks things down in a great way. She herself is, she's been a financial writer and now a podcaster for a long time. She just wrote a book about the fears of money. Like it goes into I think she calls it the healthy state of panic, right? And then she also, in recent years, she's actually taken like improv classes and those kinds of things. And so I think sometimes she goes out to these comedy clubs and does like comedy stand-up too. So it's interesting. And then she brings in all kinds of guests and she breaks down money concepts in a very easy to digest way. And yeah, that I really, really like. So yeah, those are two podcasts that I highly recommend. Books are a little bit tricky because I haven't found that many books that really speak to the creative and creative freelancer or entrepreneur or or people with inconsistent incomes that really, I think, kind of combine all these elements and are really that helpful. The one that I have been reading, for a while now that I think is great, and it doesn't go into a lot of the practical pieces. However, it's called The Soul of Money. And it goes into more of like the spiritual aspects, right? And it goes into like sometimes people have guilt around it too, right? A lot of the guilt around money. And it's like, can it do good for others, right? Like, the person who wrote it, Lynn Twist, she is, she kind of worked for a nonprofit organization where she had to go out and raise a lot of money from super rich people. And in some ways it kind of made her go, ooh, is this okay to do? And do I feel gross about it? And then for her to go around the world and discover, no, money is just this currency, and it really doesn't have it's only what we put onto it, right? There's a negative charge or a positive charge, whatever it is that you associate with it, that's what it is. And then instead it can also build communities and can do a lot of good in the world, right? And it can create more equity too, especially when people in marginalized communities actually bring in more money and are able to utilize their resources in the best way. And so I love that concept. And then, to me, it also goes into, a lot of times people are like, oh, in the Bible, it says like, having money is evil and that kind of thing. And I'm like, well, it doesn't actually say that, to be honest, right? Like, I think the idea of like holding money, like just really hoarding it, is considered evil. And then also there's actually a different parable in the Bible called the parable of the talents that, to me, says, you have the three servants who is each given a talent, right? Or given money. That's what it's called in the Bible. And then the master comes back and asks them what they did with it. And one person like tripled it. And so they were rewarded with triple the amount of land and cows and whatever. And then the person who doubled it was rewarded with double the amount. And then one servant who was like, I didn't want to do anything. You worked so hard. So I actually buried it and then gave it back to the master, right? And the master was pissed and said, you're a lazy, wicked servant. And, you could have at least put it in the bank and earned some interest, right? And so to me, like that whole concept is just twofold. One, it's when we are given resources and money, we have to use it to grow it. And then when we use it to grow, then we're actually rewarded with more. Right. And then the other thing is there's not a coincidence that the word talent is the same, as for money in the Bible. And when it comes to that, it's like we are all given a God-given talent, right? And you have a purpose in this world and you have this gift that you're given. And so it's so important that you don't just bury your talents in the ground or decide, I don't want this and I'm going to give it back to God, right? And so instead, it's so important that you actually take your talents and shine it out in the world, because that is your purpose in this world.
Well, that's a relief.
Yeah. Those are, and that was the book was Soul of Money.
Yes.
Amazing. And I want to encourage everybody listening that you can go find these podcasts right now. You can go sign up for Katy's newsletter. You can order this book on Amazon, and for little money or no money, you can start this journey. You can take these first steps towards financial freedom, because we all deserve that.
Yes, absolutely. But I'm also going to run a free workshop for creatives about all of this in December.
Nice. When exactly in December is that?
It's going to be December 5th, 7th, and 9th.
And what can we expect from the workshop?
It's going to go into the 6 steps to financial freedom and how you can, take those 6 steps and start to work with it, right? And it's going to be very interactive too. I'm going to have you do some exercises while we're in this workshop so that you can start to think about things in a very different way.
Awesome. If anyone's interested in that, I recommend go check that out. And where can people go to follow you?
They can follow me on all the socials at Katy Chen Mazarra, KatyChen Mazzara. And that's also my website, katychenmazarra.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. I just, again, want to express my gratitude for you taking the time to talk with us. A lot of really, really amazing, helpful information for our listeners. So thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you. And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.